Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. So Joel, we got an easy one today. One we've done before many times, but it's one of those golden oldies. I mean, you can just keep going back over and over again because there's a lot to learn from that. I mean, the idea of taking baby steps, right? You know, because those baby steps, my God, that concept works with so many things in life. It's amazing how often we forget about it too, especially if we're in the midst of something that's really dark or challenging or something along that line. But man, baby steps are great.
It's one of the premier tools that I use working with my clients in my personal life. By breaking things down into incremental, sometimes, the book Atomic Habits goes into a great deal about that. In the book, Atomic Habit refers to micro habits, tiny changes. And when you want to accomplish something and it seems overwhelming, by breaking things down into smaller bits, it becomes very doable. When you're trying to look at the whole package, and we discussed this a few times on the show, but I have introduced to a client several years ago now that had agoraphobia, and he also was a hoarder. So those two things, they don't go well together.
No, not really.
So he wouldn't come. So his family was paid me to go to his house and talk to him. Really nice guy. But you couldn't walk in his house because there was so much stuff. There were papers from 1988 stacked up, yellowed, and there were pathways. There was, there was just a pathway to the kitchen, a pathway to the entire house was packed full of junk. And, so I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And he goes, it's so overwhelming. I don't know where to start. So his family told me whatever we needed to do, they'd be willing to do. So I just talked to him a while. I said, this is way too much to deal with at once. I said, but will you agree that we need to start getting rid of some of this stuff? And he wanted to go, well, I don't know how to do that. I go, well, let's forget that part. If there were a way that was palatable and it made sense, would you agree to get rid of this stuff, especially the obvious stuff? Do you agree that 1985 newspapers do not have any value? He agreed. So I had the family deliver one of those dumpsters that you put, waste in and when you're moving or whatever. So they delivered that. And so the next time I was there, I went and got a rope, about a 10-foot rope. And I put an area around, I took the rope around one pile of newspapers. And I said, we're just going to work on this area.
Okay.
Today. And we're going to, and the dumpster was really close to the front door. So he was, again, he has agoraphobia. He doesn't like to go out, but I said, so let's each take a stack and take it to the dumpster. And he was really uncomfortable, but he was able to get basically off the front steps. He put his there. So we cleared that area in literally like 10 minutes.
Nice.
And so I moved the other rope. We just kept, and I said, so I'm here for an hour. Let's get as many of these areas we can, done. Cool. So we had half the room done. He was just in shock I said, so we broke that down. And I said, I'm going to leave the rope here. And if you feel like it, maybe you could rope off an area and do one or two, because if you understand that we had 4 rooms downstairs that needed this done too, and we basically accomplished 1/8 of it.
Right.
So I was supposed to be back in 4 days, and I came back, and he had about half of it done.
Wow, good for him.
Very proud. And the dumpster was full, so I had him deliver the dumpster, and I also they were delivering it when I was there. And I told the driver to put it about 10 feet further back from the door.
Ooh, okay.
Without even telling this guy. So he did. And I said, hey, let's get our rope and, let's get going. And when we opened the door, the dumpster was further back. And he goes, oh. I said, oh my goodness, they must have left it further back. And I said, but you can make it. It's just there and back. It's just an extra 5 steps. And so he did.
Yeah.
And we repeated that. We eventually got the whole downstairs taken care of, and we started working. So long story short, by breaking it down into incremental steps, we got the entire bottom floor cleaned out. There was nothing left. There's a couch and some stuff. It was great. It looked good. And the upstairs was much worse. There was an attic, but at least we had the process starting. And so each time that I would have the dumpster there, I had the dumpster, eventually had the dumpster out by the road. Um, and
I love how you applied even the baby steps to the idea of where you're putting the
yeah,
dumpster.
yeah.
I love
And so, but he knew about one, he didn't know about my, I said, man, they keep leaving this thing all over the place, don't they? And he laughed. And so when we were done that day, I said, oh my goodness, look, you're way out here by the road. He hadn't been able to check his mail in years.
Wow.
I said, the mailbox is literally right there. Why don't you check your mail? And so he checked it. Usually his mom came and did that. So he checked the mail. And again, I'm not saying he was real comfortable, but he became more and more comfortable.
Well, that's the point, because when you're going through something like this, you're taking the baby steps because that's as much discomfort as you can handle.
Yes. So, that technique applied to, we eventually, I didn't have to do it all with him. He got really self-started. Within about a month, the entire house was empty. I mean, it was fantastic. Parents hired professional cleaners to come in to really get it, could have been years without being clean. He felt really good about himself. He was walking to the mailbox every day, getting his mail. Again, his parents were really pleased with that. And I said, probably about a half mile down the road from where he lives is a really nice pond. And I said, I want to go check out that pond. Have you ever been to the pond? He goes, no, I've never been there. I said, let's go. He's like, oh, that's way down there. I go, no, it's about half a mile. So I get him to walk down to the pond. And, we sat there and we talked at the pond and all that. And then I walked back to the house and I said, man, I am so proud of you. Look what you've done. Yeah. And he came up with his own. He said, do you think I could maybe work one day? Like he didn't even think about that. I go, I know you can work. I mean, I've seen what you can do. If you can do what we've done and just, he said, but I don't know about going to a place. And I have a friend that has a franchise for chicken salad chick. I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't know.
It's a fast food chick thing, really good chicken, really good. And I talked to him about would he consider hiring him. And I said, I don't know how he's going to be there, but it's going to be uncomfortable. He hasn't been around a lot of people. Guy said, we'll be fine. And so this guy, they really made any accommodation he needed. He said, what do you think you want to do? And he said, I don't want to see people, so can I be in the back? And they said, yeah, they came up with some stuff. And everybody was really nice. They spoke to him and eventually got confident enough. He said, the guy said, I could really use you on the cash register one day.
Whoa.
And he goes, you would help me out because you got such a good rapport with our staff. I think you would do great. And he did and loved it and got really good at it and is now working. Last I heard, he was assistant manager at that place and doing really well.
No kidding.
And he still has some stuff he deals with, but it's certainly like he can't work at night and drive home at night. We're still working on that. But he's working, doing fantastic. And all of that started with a rope and just breaking it down to the most basic step.
Yeah.
And that applies to absolutely everything. If you want to go be able to bench press 315 pounds, you're not going to do it today, likely.
No.
But if you give me a year and you follow the program, you could. And that's, that's sort of the way that you have to be able to do it. So in life, whatever you want has to be done incrementally. When my clients are going off to college and they're like, that's 4 years. I go, no, it's not. I said, what it's going to be is you're going to go and you're going to come home at Thanksgiving. And that's only a few months away. Then you're going back for about a month and you're going to be there for Christmas. That's going to be the first semester. And then, and when you break college down that way, it just flies by.
Yeah.
And so all of this technique and Atomic Habits gets great book. If you haven't read Atomic Habits, it's just a great book for everybody, but particularly with the ADHD brain or people that are overwhelmed, anything is doable when you break it into small enough increments.
I love that. That is a fantastic story. And it's so identifiable, relatable. I mean, because not that everybody's a hoarder, but everybody at one time or another has had a situation where something just felt overwhelming. That's a great example of an overwhelming situation. And how even in something as severe as that one, little tiny steps can actually get you out of it. That's encouraging. That's inspiring.
Well, and for me, long before I had the knowledge I had today, when I got into recovery from my gambling addiction, I had created financial devastation. Not only did I was convicted of a felony for grand theft. I also had about $250,000 in credit card debt,
Mm,
and didn't have a lot of, couldn't make a lot of money. So it
right.
was all overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so I just kept, I didn't know what to do. And so the funny thing, I had this lucky moment when I got out of jail. Very first day I got out of jail, I was living in this transitional living home for compulsive gamblers, and they have a phone, so bill collectors had my number. So I just got out of jail. 30 days, nothing bad happened. But I was like not in the best mood.
Yeah, sure.
Convicted felon out of jail. What the hell is going to happen next? And so I answer the phone, and this guy said, "Is Joel Elston there?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, I'll never forget the name, the great conversation. He said, "My name is Steve, and I'm with Barnett Bank." And I go, "Yep." He goes, "You lost $5,000 from a credit card 4 years ago." And I said, "Okay." And he said, I need you to pay that. And I said, "Well, I just got out of jail. I owe $250,000 in credit card debt. I owe the state of Florida $15,000 or $18,000. So I don't really care what I owe you. Not a lot you can do." And he said, "Can you pay me anything?" And I said, I'm not working. I'm hopeful I'll get a job, and I'm going to look to be able to wait tables." I said, "But if I get a job, I jokingly said I could give you $10 a month."
Hmm.
And he goes, "Okay, get a job, call me, and get me $10 a month."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I did. And as we were going, I'm $10 a month, and I'd pay it every month. So what he started doing, he said, "Okay, you made 3 payments in a row. So for every $10 or whatever number you put in, I'm going to match that with a credit."
Ooh.
So I'm like, "Oh, so now I'm getting excited about being able to pay off this debt."
Yeah.
And he was really good how he did it, because the way he broke it down for me. So I got up to where I was paying $50 a month. He was putting $50 a month in. So we got it down to, we started, and he was not charging me additional interest. So it was going down. Everything was toward principal.
Yeah, that's important.
And so as we got probably a year into it, he called. He said, "Mr. Elston," he said, "you have held your end of the bargain up. We're down to, you've reduced your $5,000 debt, and plus my credits have reduced it down to $2,000. He said, "I'm going to cut that in half. If you pay me $100 a month for the next 10 months, your debt's completely clear with us." I'm like, "Wow." So I did that. And that got me thinking, well, all these other credit card debts I had. So I just started calling credit card companies
You
and
did.
saying,
Okay.
"Yeah, I owe you $25,000. That's a laughable number.
Mm.
I can't pay it, but I would like to make good on this." So I began negotiating these debts down. So at the time, I got him down to about 10 cents on the dollar across the board,
Wow.
and paid everybody off that agreed. One company didn't agree, and they never got paid. Well, I mean, what are they going to do? Sue me?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's nothing to sue. So my point is, I learned that. Well, I eventually learned that technique to share with other people who are in a mound of credit card debt by negotiating debts down. Um, it's an amazing tool that is available that most people aren't aware of.
Yeah.
Even though over the years credit card companies are not as generous as they used to be.
Mm.
But they will negotiate. So, I mean, I realized paying things down. So I saw where in many areas of my life, when I started saving money, um, I lived in South Carolina at the time when things started to be where I'm saving money. And so one of the electric company in Rock Hill, South Carolina was Duke Energy.
Mm.
And I saw in the monthly bill, Duke Energy had what they call a dividend reinvestment program, where you could buy stock directly from Duke Energy without a stockbroker.
Mm-hmm.
And the dividends would be reinvested to buy stock.
Okay.
And now I had no money. I'd paid off a lot of debt, but I had this idea of saving money was a wild idea.
Right.
So I started putting $50 a month into that. Well, that started to grow. I was in South Carolina for about 5 years. By the time I left South Carolina, I had saved up $25,000 in Duke Energy stock,
Wow.
which again, not the I wasn't going to retire on that, but that was a gigantic number at the
Oh,
time.
Massive.
Gigantic. And now I eventually sold the Duke stock because it wasn't, you don't need the dividend investment plans like you used to be able to use them, but now it's a whole different way of doing it.
Mm.
But that was my first amount of saving. And then I used that plan, whether it was, $100, 500, there's, or $10,000 a month, whatever the number I'm putting back is, I really became conditioned to putting money back every month, every month, every month. And that led everything I have today. That was the foundation of that. And that was built incrementally. I didn't hit it big. I didn't have this gigantic win. I just methodically put things back. And then I was fortunate enough to invest in some really good companies, Amazon and Google, and some of the things that they were companies I used. I was an early, back when I was living in South Carolina, Amazon was fascinating to me. Their stock was about $27 a share.
Oh my goodness.
And I was buying quite a bit of it. It has now split multiple times. It is worth $235 a share.
Wow.
And I have all that stock still. So
wow, you kept it all that time. That's great.
Yeah, it's such a big winner for me. But my point is, it was all done incrementally. So this applies to if you have a goal. One of my main things as a life coach is helping you identify your goal and then break it down to the simplest increments. How do we obtain the goal? And that, once the brain accepts, that's when the law of attraction can come in. Now you have a doable plan, and the universe is going to conspire to make your plan even better since you're taking action toward it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that. As you were telling your story, I was thinking of a friend of mine who she has a son who is in his early 30s, and he's dealing with a number of issues, including employers who doesn't really appreciate him, and I guess some toxic management going on and all that kind of stuff. But I guess he works third shift, and so he doesn't really have a social life, and it's impacting him a lot of different ways. So she knows that he needs to make some changes, but his self-esteem isn't the best. So, she's just trying to do what she can. And she was telling me about it, and I made a suggestion to her because, it's one thing if you're working with them. You're a coach, so when you're working with somebody, you can do a lot, as your stories have illustrated. But when it's somebody you don't really know, and somebody's just telling you, it's like friend of a friend kind of a thing.
Right.
You can't do a whole lot. But I thought of one thing I could tell her that might help, and I said, one of the hardest things when you're dealing with stuff like this is just taking steps, because and she knows too how important those baby steps are, but it's hard to get started sometimes. I said, why don't you advise him just to take a step in any direction? It doesn't really matter what direction it is. If you go in the wrong direction, the universe is going to let you know somehow anyway. It's going to say, take a legal U-turn and go the other way.
Right.
Just take a step. And so she told her son about that. Her son liked that. He really resonated with it. He says, I'm going to do that. So, even though I've never even met the young man, I have no idea what he's like or anything like that. I was, 2 people away from him, but just by suggesting take a step in any direction, and it doesn't matter what direction you're going in, it's another way to take a small step, and you don't even have to guide the person. You just take a step because the universe is going to guide you. It's not like you have to have somebody there saying, this direction to the thing that you're looking for.
And that's that GPS analogy I often discuss. Your GPS only works when you move, and it doesn't matter which way you move. You just got to move, and it'll correct. And that's life. And as you know, my version of the law of attraction is an action-based law of attraction. That I certainly believe in and think about, and all this stuff's going to happen. But my belief system requires action to make things work. So that's a necessary component. How I manifest things is an action. Now, as you're saying, the action, I've had amazing things happen when the action didn't even remotely match what I was after, but there was an action or a movement that led to something.
Right. And that's the key. It leads to something.
Yes.
And it leads almost inevitably to something we don't expect.
Absolutely.
Or maybe we do expect it abstractly, but it doesn't play out the way we had thought it was going to be. In other words, there's some variation that produces a result that, oh, wow, I didn't really expect it was going to work that way. And I got this lead that I didn't know about. And this thing happened that I would never been able to predict. That's the kind of thing that happens.
Yes, it does. And that's the amazing thing when you realize these incremental actions, the universe, life has a way of, not only just self-correcting like we're talking about, but for if you throw a thousand, BBs, the little thing that shoots some BB guns.
Mm-hmm.
If you're I'm in my office at home down here. If you're on the other side of the building here, and we were to try to hit two BBs in the air, the odds of that are terribly against it, right? We
Yeah,
would be here.
you probably have a better chance of hitting each other than hitting the
Yeah.
BB.
But if I were to take a box full of 5,000 BBs, and you were to take a box full of 5,000 BBs, and we say simultaneously we're going to throw them toward each other, some of those BBs are going to hit.
Yeah.
And so by taking action, by getting a lot of BBs won't hit, but some will hit. And sometimes you put yourself in a position for these things. So multiple actions, multiple steps, that's a stagnant action plan is what most people get stuck because they're overwhelmed. But when you have the action plan, I'm a believer in, you get a job, whatever job that is. What are we going to call the worst job in the world? McDonald's or something. Worst job in the world. You get that job with the idea of, first of all, going in and doing the best job you can at McDonald's, so you can get as much money as you can at McDonald's, while simultaneously working for the next best job.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep looking and you build up. But when you sit home waiting for opportunity to show up, and I'm not getting on a rant, but a lot of our younger people today are sitting around waiting on opportunities that are never going to come.
Right.
Because the Instagram, all that, it points out all these people who, I made faceless videos and made $10,000 last month.
Mm-hmm.
That's a plausible plan, but they suggest that there's really no action involved. People that I know that have done that have worked their ass off doing that to make it work.
Right.
It works, but it isn't this simple 2-hour work day. They work really hard.
And you actually mentioned something that reminds me of an old Mike Dooley thing, because Mike, at one point early on in his career, before he became the man behind Notes from the Universe and so forth, he and his mom had a t-shirt business, and the t-shirt business, they kind of reached a point where they realized it wasn't going to do much more. So they ended up getting rid of the t-shirt business, but he was trying to figure out what to do next. And his training was as an accountant. And he was only sort of so about following the accountancy path. It had an accountant job, but it really wasn't anything he loved. He didn't know where he wanted to work or what he wanted to do, and none of the opportunities that were available. He described it this way. He said, there was one opportunity that was like the crappy one, and there was another one that was the crappier one, and then there was a third one that was the crappiest one. So he had three of them: the crappy, crappier, and crappiest.
Yes.
And he picked the crappy one because that was the least crappy of the three.
Right.
But the point is, he picked it. And the crappy one led to a series of events that led to some good stuff that he could never have seen in advance. So even when we're faced with a crappy, a crappier, and a crappiest option, you pick one. It actually doesn't even matter which one you pick.
It doesn't matter.
If it were me, I'd take the crappy one because that's the least undesirable. But it doesn't matter which one you pick, because inevitably they're all going to lead to something that you didn't expect.
And that's sort of the point. I have never seen this fail. Successful people take action. They break it down into steps. They look at you move toward something where down the road, metaphorically, is where you're going to run into something else that's going to lead to something else. When I left Florida and moved to South Carolina to run the treatment center there, I hated the idea of moving to South Carolina. It was terrible. I thought it was a horrible state at first. And, eventually I fell in love with South Carolina. It was amazing. And had a great, we did a really, successful business. And so I'm thinking South Carolina is where I now live. And then I eventually ran into this guy that hired me away to come to Virginia.
Yeah.
And, that was like that action. I thought, wow, this is where I'm going to retire. Well, that didn't retire. But I also met Dr. Master and several other colleagues that began my network here in Virginia. So I started a life coaching business when not many people even knew what that was. I didn't even know what it was.
Including you. Yeah, you didn't know what it was.
I'm pretty sure I was the first one in Richmond. That might not be true, but I don't have any way to prove that.
I'm not going to dispute it. I think it probably was. You were the first.
And so, then with that, the network that I met at this previous job at Williamsville Wellness, I had all these therapists I knew. I was their boss, and now I then got all the networking people I'd met, introduced them, told them what I was doing. they started sending me clients, and within a few weeks I'm full. And
That was
all of
fabulous.
that, all of that started with me moving from Florida to South Carolina, and along the way, I didn't want to do any of them.
Yeah, yeah, I like that last bit right there. Along
Yeah.
the way, I didn't want to do any of them.
Yeah, I mean, leaving the beaches of Florida for Rock Hill, South Carolina, on the surface sounds like the stupidest thing in the
It
world.
does. It
Yeah,
does. Yeah.
yeah. But
What?
it led to this, and and now in Richmond, it's just been this connection. There's people that think I've lived here my entire life. I know somebody nominated me for one of the 50 most influential people in Richmond, kind of
Oh,
that
wow.
stupid thing they do.
Yeah,
I,
that's nice though.
I would not accept. I said, no, that's embarrassing. But the point that you have that going on, and you have all that started with an action. It wasn't foreseeable. If you'd have told me this is what's going to happen, wow, I couldn't have believed it. And here we are.
Well, you
And
probably would have doubted it. You probably would have said, "Yeah, right. Okay,
well, it's
you got
not.
a great
I mean,
imagination."
yeah, I mean, again, going way back to Florida, where I get out of jail and I'm talking about that money that I owed. I'm a convicted felon. I have no money, and I'm waiting tables. How does that get to where I'm at? That makes no sense.
It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like, what do you think you are, Disneyland? I mean,
yeah, yeah. It's so again, and the people that here in Richmond, I've grown to love the community.
mm,
I'm not saying this is my final stop. We're talking before the show. I might, me, I'm quite capable of just whatever, but I am an action guy, and I have come to accept that whatever action I take is going to be the exact perfect action, because it's going to lead me to what it needs to lead me to.
I'm curious. Do you remember when you made the decision to go to South Carolina? Do you remember? I know you remember that it didn't make a lot of sense. You did anyway. But do you remember why you decided to go that way?
Absolutely. So the final the final payment for my restitution to the state of Florida to get off probation was $3,500.
Okay.
And I paid down 15 from 15 to 3,500.
Okay.
So I did not have $3,500. I wasn't going to ask my parents for it. I've done it all on my own. So I was accepting that I was going to have to extend my probation another year.
Uh-huh.
So my business partner, Rick, who was wanting me to go to South Carolina, I absolutely told him no at first. I am not going to South Carolina. And I was on probation, so I wouldn't be able to go to South
You
Carolina.
couldn't go, right?
Yeah. So that was a good excuse. So he said, well, if your impediment is probation and this money, I will loan you the money. We'll just be taken off incrementally of your cut of our business. You'll be on 50% of the business with me, and you'll go to South Carolina and work there for at least a year. And I'm like, I didn't want to do it, but it was such a good offer, and it would get me off probation. And I was planning on going there for a year.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
interesting on a couple levels, because it's very clear you didn't want to do it.
Right.
I mean, apparently there was nothing in what he was having you do that was a draw for you.
No.
So nothing appealing there. The only really appealing thing for you, and it's a big one, is that it would get you off probation.
Yeah.
And basically free you up. And that is appealing. But here's the really interesting part. It was appealing, but it wasn't appealing for you to get excited about doing the job. You just kind of had to talk yourself into it a little bit.
Yeah, and the job itself was okay. I was doing counseling. I had done it for a couple years down there. Me being co-owner of the company sounds sort of exciting, but it was not a thriving business. We did okay, but it wasn't. I did not make millions of dollars while I was there. But it was okay.
Yeah.
But that led me, I fell in love with South Carolina. I have a lot of dear friends in South Carolina. Period of time, I thought I was going to retire in South Carolina. Great place. Nicest people in the world, regardless of what I thought about South Carolina. The people there were just the kindest, nicest people. And again, some of them are very dear friends. But what got me out of South Carolina was this guy that was opening up a treatment center up here in Richmond. He came down, and he heard about my reputation, what I was doing. He said it in a couple groups. We talked, he offered me a job to be director of his program. And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to Virginia. And he called me pretty much every month for a year. And
Wow.
yeah, and asking what I was doing. And then finally, the treatment center in South Carolina, the video poker machines that were sort of the source of our clients were ruled like, it was a weird move. The Supreme Court of South Carolina on one day ruled the machines are illegal immediately. And everybody ceases immediately. The police are going to arrest anyone that has a plugged in machine that day. It wasn't like, let's shut down in 6 months. It was like, it's illegal and they're shut down that day. So that was chaos. So our clientele went down from pretty regular to very few. So it was not going to make it. And so that's when this guy, I actually, time he called, I said, well, can I come up and see your facility? And I did. The facility was perfect. It was my son Chris and my son TJ were living with me at the time. And we went up there, and I didn't know what else I was going to do. I mean, so it was like, it seemed like the only choice there. I did like the idea. The location was beautiful. The facility was beautiful. And by that time, like I said, I had some money saved up, and I was, I wasn't destitute.
Right.
And the guy was offering a very fair wage, and I worked there for 5 years. So it just one thing led to the other, which led to the other, and it could not have worked out any better. But there's no way, as you're saying, could I ever envision the ultimate ending now?
Right. Right.
And this isn't the end. I didn't make that came out wrong, but being where I'm at right now, I don't have to ever work again. I will, because I can't imagine not working, but I'm in a great place now.
And the word end, you kind of alluded to it a moment ago, because we try to think of it as like, oh, the end. Oh God, I don't want the end.
Yeah.
Well, that's one way to look at the end, of course. But another way to look at an end is the end is the next beginning of whatever the next thing is that comes along.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we're looking, starting at the point that you were at, where you were in Florida, you're dealing with probation, big debt to be paid off, all that kind of stuff. The idea of an end that would lead you to a place where you were out of debt, you had savings, and you were the director of an institute, that end was impossible.
Right. Yeah. Made no sense.
But nevertheless, you got there. And this is the cool part in my mind. Not only did you achieve that end, but that end became the beginning to the next phase.
Well, and and I've often, you and I've talked about this. In fact, that's sort of where you came on board in my life is, I was working at that facility when you first contacted me.
That's right.
And we spoke a time or two. It was good. And then
on the show, you were my 12th guest. I think I've told you that, but you were my 12th guest ever on the podcast.
Yeah. So once I left, I reached out to you at some point, and I had lost at some point my son, TJ had passed away, and I'd written a book, and I actually said, hey, Walt, you're still doing the podcast? I'd like to talk to you about my book.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, hey, I need a co-host. And so we had a good run for a while there.
We did, a number of years. Yeah.
And it was really amazing. So again, our connection was part of this thing.
Right.
It was all part of it. But so I look at all this as nothing ever fails as long as there's movement and hope. That's the two, in my mind, that's the formula. And in my case, a lot of it wasn't even me wanting to do it. It's like the universe says, this is your destiny, and I'm going to make you do it.
Yes. That it's amazing how often that plays out, especially when we take those uncomfortable steps. I was telling you a story before we got going, and that aligns with that. But there are a lot of different ways that we experience being in a situation. It's a situation that's uncomfortable because we don't really know if the steps we're taking are really any good. They're really going to lead us anywhere near where we want to be. Will we like any of it along the way? It's uncomfortable when we're in that kind of space. And yet, if we take, it's very uncomfortable. And if we take the steps anyway, then that's when the funny things happen. The things that you look back and say, how did that happen? That doesn't seem possible. I mean, well, how many times you've told the story about, like you just did here tonight. You told the story about how you got out of jail and one thing after another, and then you end up being a life coach. And every time we tell that story, I think to myself, no Hollywood writer would ever write that one.
It's ridiculous.
Because no one would ever believe it.
Yeah. It's like, okay, these things happen. I don't know how they happen. And that's, so even to this day, where, now my whole mindset's obviously much different. My most comfortable place is being uncomfortable now. I have learned to reverse that. I like uncomfortable. I like movement. Randomly, beginning of this year, for no real reason, I said, "Hey, I sold my house and moved to another neighborhood." Yeah, for no reason. It made no sense. It didn't matter. And I was glad.
Well, you had one reason. Your fellow friends in your mastermind group said you haven't done anything crazy in a while.
Yeah, that's what started. One of my mentors, said, "Joel, it's been a few years since you've done something illogical and crazy. I think it's time." You're right. I'll sell my house. So, yeah, but that I just thriving off of that, and putting stuff out there. It's just such a great way to live, and we the fear, the homeostasis that we've often talked about, the things that keep us stuck and keep us in our perceived comfort zone is really we're rotting. And then outside of the comfort zone is when you're forced to take other action, and that action leads to the best parts of your life. There's, if at this point, I expect success, I expect a long life, I expect great health, all those things I've just come accustomed to and believe they'll keep me happy. But along the way, I could never have dreamed having this life. It just makes based on the history of what I had, it makes no sense this was attainable.
Oh, it makes no sense at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other funny thing that goes along with this is we go through these steps, we go through these experiences, and as we're going through them, we doubt every step along the way. And it's amazing how, despite all of our doubts, I mean, law of attraction, right? We know that if you want to attract something into your life, not only do you need to have a positive focus about it, but you have to feel it. It's not just enough to positively say, I'm going to have this thing happen. You have to feel it, and it has to be a continuous, consistent vibrational thing. You have to stay in that space. How interesting that we can be doubtful and still be in that space.
Oh, absolutely.
And we can just keep carrying on the doubt over and over and over again and keep expressing it after, one step after another. And we can get one good result after another and still express the doubt. But because the vibration is good enough, it just keeps moving along, not along a straight path because the vibration wasn't good enough for that. But it was just good enough to follow this crazy, rickety path that made no sense and ended up like, what? How did that happen?
Well, and you like I said before, when along the way, my biggest struggle because of my addiction, specific addiction, and life history, my relationship with money was always bad. I lacked money, and I literally attracted more of that lack and worked super hard and never seemed to be able to get ahead. And once I started understanding, the value of the right mindset, and you get, like I say, you get to the point where it's laughable that money doesn't occupy a second of my day. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not a thing. It doesn't. Yeah. It's like some other day. I have some stock holdings and I have some Bitcoin, and somebody said your Bitcoin's up a lot. Then I haven't seen it. Yeah, I'm sure. It doesn't matter. It's cool, But it's this great way to live. And it starts with this incremental, and also the universe has a way of once you understand it, it is on cruise control. It really is. It does. You mentioned something earlier about somebody had a different, sort of a twist on the law of attraction they were talking about, and which I always like new ideas. Me, I always like.
Me too. Things. Yeah, it was fun.
But the version that I'm talking about, it's just the simplest. It's not near as complicated as you and I made it all those years.
We were very good at making it complicated, by the way.
We wanted the answer.
It made some good shows. I mean, we had some really good shows as a result of it.
You have two pretty smart dudes trying to, basically what we're saying, it can't be this simple. So let's keep talking about it.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, we did that for years. It's like,
there's another piece of this too, because we talked a lot about neuroscience over the years and neuroplasticity and the ability of of the human animal to train new patterns into the nervous system, into the neural pathways. One of the things that goes along with that, I think, is what you were talking about earlier, the idea of being in a comfort zone versus being out of a comfort zone. And I don't remember what your exact quote is, but you said something like you have no problem being out of a comfort zone. I would even go so far as to say you like it being outside.
I love being out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, it's actually a lot more fun. And the reason I want to mention the neuroscience attached to that is what you essentially did, not by design. I mean, it's not like you planned to do this, but what you ended up doing is creating a pathway and then reinforcing it over and over again about being outside a comfort zone until it got to the point where you didn't want to be anywhere else because you had built it into the neural pathway. You actually created a neural pathway that said, I like being outside of the comfort zone. And now it's really true.
Yeah, it really is. And, you can make, I've spent over the years, spent a lot of time reframing words, reframing what things mean to me. Being, the comfort zone sounds lovely, and I'm sure it is for a short period of time, but I view that as stagnant and not moving forward. That there will be a point in time when this body of mine becomes stagnant after I'm dead, probably, and it will definitely do what it does at that point. But until then, I like forward, I like movement, I like to be out of my comfort zone. I could be sitting on the beach today, watching the waves and doing nothing else today. You know how long I would live? Not long. Seriously, my brain requires this. So the comfort zone, and plus the other part of the reprogramming. So when we're 7 years old is our prime time brain for neuroplasticity.
Oh my goodness.
The brain is wide open at 7 years old. It is programmable. That's why 7-year-olds run around, they touch everything, they got to know what's happening, they ask a million questions, they're super smart, and they're absorbing, and they're programming their brain with all this information.
Right.
And as we hit puberty, the brain can maintain neuroplasticity, but it begins a process called neural pruning. And what that is when the brain starts getting rid of things that it perceives as useless, because 7-year-olds want to do everything. But the neuroscience tells us that evolution has made us, we got to start getting rid of the useless stuff and start going for the stuff that makes sense, our careers or what we're going to make a living at and all that. So by doing that, we have a tendency to decrease our neuroplasticity. Nature does it first, but we do nothing to help it. We just accept. Every kid I know at 7 years old plays every sport. They play baseball, they play soccer, they play football, they do that. By the time they're 13 or 14, they're usually down to 1 or 2, and by the time they're 17 or 18, very few are even playing sports anymore. It's just this, it keeps doing that. But one of the biggest discoveries that I made is, and I didn't discover this, I read about it, I learned it, was as an adult, the brain is most neuroplastic immediately after failure.
Great point.
Because failure happens, we perceive that as like, oh my God. So the brain opens up, we cannot do that again. So let's learn, let's reprogram.
Interesting.
So when I talk about failing is literally neuroscience and improving neuroplasticity. Your perspective of failing needs to be correct. It's growth. You can't be defeated by it, but you need to be challenged by it.
Right. How interesting, though, that connection exists in that way, because that's not going to be the first thought that comes to our minds.
No.
Yeah.
But you can make it the first. So one of the things that my ego and my upbringing and the people I were around, and I think a lot of people, I was very fearful of letting anyone see me struggle. I didn't mind struggling or working hard. I just didn't want to give the perception of me having to struggle or failing. So I never would step up and do things. I would always take the safe route because I didn't want to be the one laughed at.
Right. Okay.
But as I have learned, my success, I have failed epically. I mean, I may be the world champion failure if there is.
You're really good at it. I'll say that.
Yeah, but I also understand the value of failure, what it does for me. It instructs. I go for. I don't quit. So that's the thing. I don't quit. I might fail a lot to proceed, to move forward, but I never quit. So it's not really failing. I use it as strictly as a tool.
Yeah, Will Smith made a great point about that. He said, we think that we hear about a celebrity who's an instant overnight success, and we never realize or think about the fact that that overnight success came after 10 years of struggle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's I've had young clients that have no idea of my story. They see this, their mom sits them down in front of this old, big weightlifting dude with a shaved head, and they're looking at him like, bro, what in the world am I sitting in front of you for?
And I can't blame them for that. I mean, it makes
no,
sense.
yeah. And but as they get to know me and they understand and I start saying they're fascinated by it. They're
Mm,
fascinated by it all. They're realizing, oh my God, this is I've had young people say, I can't believe that what you're telling me is true. It goes against everything that I've learned.
yeah.
And my young clients are always the best at law of attraction. They're always the ones that pick it up. But again, because they don't have 50 years of programming telling why things won't go right.
That's right. Yeah. I remember the first time we talked about that, the 50 years of baggage that we pile on, and then we try to figure out how to learn this stuff, which is what I did. I didn't start learning this till I was 55, for goodness sake. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it is harder. It's a lot harder.
It is.
It's still doable. You can still learn it. It's just
Oh yeah, it's very learnable. But 12-year-olds are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And they just start doing it. It's like,
flip the switch. Here we go.
yeah. And they're like, okay, that pisses me off. But it's wonderful to see. And so, life is built for us to move forward. It's built, one of my favorite saying is, a ship is safest in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for.
That's right.
We are safest in the cave. We're safest at home, but that's not what we're intended for. We're intended for growth and movement and to get the hell out of here and go do things. It's exciting when you understand that we are literally programmed for action.
By the way, we tend to kind of skip over this piece, but we believe that the ship is safest in the harbor, and yet there are a number of instances that tell us that it's not. I mean, I don't want to get too negative here, but Pearl Harbor, 1941, all the ships were in the harbor. That didn't work out so good. And
time out at 7:59, Monday, July 28th. That's when we're recording. Walt totally kills the mood with the Pearl Harbor story. I just want to flag that. We are on a good roll, Walt.
I think I'm still on a good roll here, because what that tells me is the adage that says that your ship is safest in the harbor isn't necessarily true. So you're not doing yourself any favor by adopting that viewpoint.
Well, no,
and that's the more extreme example, and it's a very negative one, obviously. But I think there are actually other examples too, if you think about it. Like, let's say, well, my folks used to live on a lake, on Smith Mountain Lake, which you know very well. If you leave your boat in the water and you don't move it and you don't do anything with it, what's it going to do? No. It's going to accumulate all this scum. If it's a pontoon boat, it's going to accumulate the scum all over that pontoon, over the pontoons. Actually, there's two of them. And it's just going to get worse and worse over time. Whereas if you're driving it out on the lake every day, that's not going to happen as quickly.
Of course. Well, and same theory down in Florida when a Category 4 hurricane's coming. At MacDill Air Force Base, any of the planes or the ships that are there, or boats in the harbor, they get the boats out of the harbor because the most unsafe place for them is in a hurricane in the harbor where they have nothing to be. So the analogy, you're right. But the belief system that we have is, let's not take the chance. The known accounting job that I've been doing for 30 years that I hate, it does pay the bills. It does do this. So we make a lot of concessions. I'm not critical of anyone that does that. There's a lot of logic to that. It's just, I understand. But, the idea that how many people live a life of not remotely scratching what was potentially there for them? A lot.
And by the way, if we take this concept of the baby steps and apply it to the comfort zone, we can take baby steps out of the comfort zone.
Absolutely.
We don't have to take a large leap out of the comfort zone. We can just put a toe outside.
Sure. I prefer the gigantic leaps, but
personally, I agree.
Yeah, but you're right. You can again create those gigantic leaps by taking the incremental leaps early. But it's the guidance of one thing that I really believe with all my heart, we're not here to sit around and be miserable and depressed. That's not why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that we were given this brain, we were given the concepts, and we've been in a fight with society of what societal norms are, and versus what is this? By allowing yourself to go. One thing, I've had a wild life in a lot of ways. I can't imagine having a better life experience and all the stuff I've experienced. Whenever that is, when it comes to an end, it's going to be like, yeah, damn, he left everything on the. I mean,
Yeah.
he squeezed every bit of life you could out of a life, and that's
Right.
what I want. I mean, and that's it. I plan on going. If it's fortunate, one day you'll read something crazy happened and I died. I hope it's crazy.
I kind of expect it would be, actually.
Yeah. It's like, well, I don't know what he was doing, but he fell in that volcano for some reason.
He
Whatever.
did, yeah.
Yeah. But the idea that you're here, and I find life just amazing. It's exciting, and regardless, I'm on a total Facebook shutdown right now because of that. That's where news was sneaking in on me, and I just had to shut that down for a while. And I'm
Sure.
finding Instagram's a different story for me for some reason. It doesn't seem to have that same back and
Well,
forth.
to
I
have
just
some
post.
kind of interaction. So,
Yeah. It's just I don't. Nobody's doing what they do on Facebook, but
right.
I'm really grateful that I don't know what's going on out there, because the
Mm.
stuff I am aware of is just horrifying.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be driving me crazy. But life as I see it right now, what's right in front of me, spectacular things are happening. And we have this, we go through life, and I literally view it as I have no idea what's going to happen the next day. I had a relatively calm Monday today, I told you. Usually my
Right.
Mondays are way out there, and relatively calm. And it was like, yeah, that's good. But I sort of missed the crazy. I sort of missed that. What the hell happened? Kind of thing. Like when you pick up the phone going, oh boy, I can't wait to see what happened here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's kind of like the day at the beach. I mean, you like you said, you don't really want to live at the beach.
Right.
I mean, there are a few people who want that, but I think most people would find that after the first week or two, they're getting pretty bored because, I mean, there's not a whole lot happens at the beach. It's the same thing every day.
Right.
But if you occasionally go to the beach,
it's fun.
That's a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
So even with the accountant who has the safe job and the safe income and doesn't feel like he wants to, upset that apple cart by just jumping into something else, even the accountant can put out resumes. It's not like they have to stay at that particular job. They can go find another one at the same time while they're working their job. They don't have to quit the job in order to go look for something else. So they can stay in that relatively safe zone, just put the toe a little bit outside the line, and maybe find something they'll like even better.
Can you imagine your 30th year in accounting and you wake up on a Monday saying,
I can't imagine my first year in accounting.
I mean, but just imagine, Walt, you're 10 years from retirement, you wake up on a Monday, you're like, I get to go add some numbers up today that nobody cares about.
I mean, I do bookkeeping for my business only because I have to, because QuickBooks makes it relatively easy. But I can't imagine doing that every day. That would just, no, it doesn't work for me.
I'm glad I'm not making fun of anyone. I'm just simply saying we all have different brains.
We do.
My brain looks at that and just like, oh no.
Well, I look at the same thing. I look at it the same way when I look at life coaching. I admire people like you who are life coaches. I've had hundreds of life coaches. That's not an exaggeration. Hundreds of life coaches on my show over the years. I have no desire to be a life coach. And you remember, I actually considered that for a while.
Yeah.
And the more I considered it, the more I realized that to me is like accounting. I had no interest in it. It just wasn't. I love talking about this stuff on the show. I love having these interactions with you and my other co-hosts and my guests and stuff. I love that. That's fun. But actually sitting down on scheduled appointments for 45 to 50 minutes at a time, working with people, I just can't face that. Whereas for you, you love that.
I love it. And I love my clients. I look forward to seeing their growth. It's fun. It's exciting to me. And I bring a lot of energy to my clients. And I think that's why they find it exciting too. It's just, you come in, my goal is to leave the room feeling better than you walked in. Just minimally, if nothing else gets accomplished, I want you to match my energy. I find that I love doing that.
Well, that also is a very effective therapeutic technique
Oh yeah,
because your energy is high. I mean, you're a
yeah,
high energy guy, a high
yeah,
vibration guy too.
yeah.
So it's not like it's a lot of work for you to raise somebody else's vibration because you just have to be who you normally are, and it just does it.
Well, and especially when you have young people who nobody's ever reached them, and to
Mm,
see their face when they're like, wait a minute, maybe this guy's telling me the truth, maybe I'm not a loser, maybe everything everybody else tried to tell, what if this guy's right, when they once they have that,
yeah.
everything changes. I mean, I have the coolest clients in the world. I mean, the one of my clients I was talking to today, and I keep telling him he needs to quit coming. He's been coming every 2 weeks now for 10 years. And
Wow. Oh my
and
goodness.
I said, you don't need, he said, I just, it's something I'll do as long as you're doing this. I love it. It's just, he
He's
loves it.
getting energy out of it.
Yeah.
He loves the energy in the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah. I keep telling him, I'm going to fire you one day. And he goes, no, you're not. And we just keep going.
I'm
But
sympathetic to it. I mean, I don't pay the fee, so maybe I'm a little bit smarter there. But I'm sympathetic because I do these weeklies with you. Like, I love these. These are
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. But he, again, you see that, or you see these young people, and they buy into the concepts that, one thing, and I have, when I say, my life happened in the order that was necessary for it to happen. And so
Mm,
I never do I wish this would have happened earlier. But the one thing that I wish was possible
mm.
is to have gotten this information when I was 15 or 16.
Oh my God, me too. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. In
It,
fact, I
it,
would have
it
liked to have got, honestly, you mentioned 7 because it's such a impressionable age.
yeah.
I wish I'd gotten this at 7.
Yeah, I mean, I've shared the story often how when I was, 12, and I was on this spiritual quest of what I was being taught in church was clearly crazy,
Oh.
but I also didn't dismiss a greater energy. So
Mm,
I was trying to reconcile the two. The greater energy was not that silliness they were telling me,
yeah.
but there's certainly a God or a greater energy for sure. And I knew
Mm,
that. And, there wasn't a lot of access. If the internet wasn't around, I lived in a Southern Baptist small town. They certainly weren't going to tell me anything else other than that.
right. Right.
And they thought anything I believe now is Satan worship. I think is what a lot of people tell me. But it's this idea that we get this information. Whenever you get it at the right time. You're going to need it.
Hmm.
And once you understand, we're here for 85 years at most, or 80 years, 90, whatever, whatever that time is. At least in this I believe I've been here many times, but at least in this life, whatever you're going to get out. And does it make any sense to not just squeeze everything out of it? I'm
Mm,
fascinated by it all. I look at it, and I understand why people are negative, and but I look at it like there's so much, and I have the power of having. Not only do my younger clients, I love all my clients, but my younger ones, their energy also lifts me up, especially when they get it. You
that's
know,
fun. Yeah,
and to
that's
see
really
them
good.
change, and to see them become confident, to see them, walk in and just basically just rewrite their entire life because of one concept that they realized was real.
I want to piggyback on what you said with another story that does have a negative piece to it, but honestly, I don't look at it negatively. So I'm framing it that way in advance because you talked about the lifetime, what the average lifetime is, and so forth, and we don't know how long it's going to last. It lasts whatever it lasts, but the impetus is on taking action now and getting the most out of it now. I have a direct example of that out of my own life. I learned that a really good friend of mine, a young man who, when I was a young man also, we played music together. We were guitarists. We took from the same music teacher. And we even played out together a number of times. I learned that he passed 2 weeks ago from kidney cancer. And all I could think was an interesting thing, too, by the way. You knew that I'd lived in Virginia for 11
Yeah,
years. During the time that I was in Virginia, my sister received contact from this friend of mine who I'd lost touch with and learned that he was in Luray, Virginia, an hour away from where I lived. So we
awesome.
reconnected, which was really great. And we got to, this is like oh God, 30 years after we last seen each other. It was one of those kinds of things. And we had a great reconnection. He actually talked me into going to the high school reunion. I mean, we had a lot of good stuff that came out of it. But one thing that I also learned is that while he had done some really interesting things in his life, he also had mostly gotten away from various kinds of drug addictions or alcohol addictions. He didn't really call them addictions, but they were issues that had gone on in his life. And I know he had made a lot of changes to clean up. I don't think he had made all the changes he could make. And I think it ended up catching up with him. The last few years of his life, I know that he made some changes in his life that were changes for the good. And I think ultimately at the end, he had pretty much run his course. I think he felt like he was done. But by the same token, I keep asking myself, what if he had that attitude that we were just talking about?
Yeah.
Let's just go for it right now. What I've got right now.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about that over and over and over again. So, yeah. When you lose a friend like that, and he was a good friend, it captures your attention, makes you think.
Well, you look at it, and I like I said, I want to go whenever it is. If it's tonight or tomorrow or 10 years, 20 years from now, my goal is to get all of it, and I want to use every bit of this life. I love it. I'm fascinated by how all this works, and that's my goal, to get up every day. And we all know, I know a lot of people get to be my age or your age, and they become just preoccupied with death and when it's going to happen in their health.
Oh, yes.
I'm preoccupied with life, and that on a daily basis. That's what I look at. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to be here a year from now, but I do know that, at least if I wake up tomorrow, I'm starting the day. And that's all you do. That's all you can do.
And you do that, you're doing everything.
Everything. There's right, nothing else. Like I said, the most, the book that sums it all up, unfortunately for the author, the entire book is in the title, The Power of Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he wrote the book, I don't think he understood you don't need to read anything other than the title.
This is true. Yes. And reading the book actually reinforces that belief system.
It just simply says The Power of Now. It's a great book, but it's like one of those movies where they show you the entire movie in the trailer.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. It's like, great book, but it really just needed a pamphlet.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to all the communications and conversations we're going to have for however long it lasts. I don't know how long it's going to last, but
we'll keep playing it till it does.
We certainly will. Thank you so much. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.